All right. So, do you feel the AGI? And that's really what it's all about. You know, when it comes to all the developments in AI, if you're really keeping up with the trends, it's a lot about AGI. That's the big deal. That's the holy grail. That's what people are looking at. That's what everybody's chasing. So that's what we're going to talk about. So I hope this will be pretty entertaining for you, at the very least. Okay, I'm not sure what I just pressed. Okay, so just my own background. If you haven't seen the movie War Games, it was actually like the third largest grossing movie in the world in 1983. And it's the first movie ever to show AI in its current setting. And what do I mean by that? All the other movies that have shown AI were showing AI in the future, like 2001: A Space Odyssey, other movies as well. But War Games showed it in its current state. And unfortunately, we don't have the clips. I'm going to put the clips in a follow-up. But in the movie, AI is actually shown. That's a key component in the whole story. So we're kind of one of the first to talk about that. When I did my hacking back in 1974, I used AI then to do my hacking. And I actually, well, if you've seen the movie, a lot of it's true. Obviously, they dramatized it and so on, but it's a lot of it's true. All right, so that's a little bit about that. So, Sam Altman, I think you know who he is, the CEO of OpenAI. This is the most interesting year in human history, except for all future years. They know what's going on. And I'm going to convince you, I hope, that OpenAI has already achieved AGI. It was probably the first week of October. So I'm going to make a bit of a case for that. But I'm also going to talk about why that may not be that important. Why there are other issues that will be driving what's going on in AI. Another executive at OpenAI, notice what he said. If you follow the market, there's like paradigm shifts every other week. I'm not kidding you. It's that much. Tens of thousands of papers are being published each year in AI. It's ridiculous to keep up with. And then he's saying, well, the last 12 months, yeah, that's really slow for what we're going to see. So Jamie Dimon, I think you know who he is from JP Morgan. He made this comment just like a couple of weeks ago or so, a few weeks ago. Notice what he said. It will augment virtually every job. And that's something to think about. We think of AI as artificial intelligence, but in many ways we should be thinking about it as augmented intelligence, at least for the next several years. Think of it that way. And that's what Jamie Dimon is pointing to. But I like the last line the best. Think the printing press, the steam engine, electricity, computing, and the internet. That's what he sees as the impact of AI. How profound is that? And if you know Jamie Dimon, he's not one to exaggerate. So that's what he's saying. What did Bill say? Well, Bill Gates said there's really three jobs to look at for the future. Either you're in AI, bioscience, energy, or unemployed. So those are really your three choices. So energy, though, would be obviously renewables, but more fusion. And bioscience, of course, would relate to a lot of medical cures and such. You're seeing AI already have a tremendous impact in chemistry in many different areas. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Notice what he says. I could even lose my job to Sam Altman. Okay, and he has focused his efforts now purely on AI for what he does on a technical side. So what is AGI? This is the definition from OpenAI. So AI systems that are generally smarter than humans, although there's a little bit of a joke about that. Does that mean humans with an IQ of 100? Or the average human in Silicon Valley who has at least one degree from Berkeley or Stanford? That would be a problem, right, if that's the case. And they joke about that actually at OpenAI. So what is it really? So my definition here, we're looking at cognitive tasks that can really be performed, that can take over a lot of jobs, for example, of a knowledge in the knowledge industries. That's really the key issue for AGI. It's we likely have already achieved that. So one thing I want to show in defense of that is our first little video clip here.
Like 4 times now in the history of OpenAI, the most recent time was just in the last couple of weeks. I've gotten to be in the room when we sort of like push the veil of ignorance back and the frontier of discovery forward.
Clip. This is the second clip.
To be very concrete, do you think the existing models or some, the next GPT-4, say GPT-5 or so, will be able to state a new non-trivial mathematical conjecture? I'm not saying proving it, I'm saying stating it. Who think it's possible within the next 5 years?
Are you sure that the current model cannot do it?
I'm not sure, absolutely. To be very concrete, do you think the existing models or some...
Now go back to that just to show who the people are so I can describe who they are. Okay, so what you have in the upper left, you have Demis Hassabis. He's the founder of Google DeepMind, co-founder of Google DeepMind. I would say DeepMind's contributed most of the AI technology to Google. It wasn't other factions within Google. On the bottom left is Jeff Hinton. He's one of the 3 godfathers of deep learning. And then on the right is, bottom right, is Ilya Sutskever, who at the time was the chief scientist at OpenAI. He's the one who responded to that. This is on October 7th of last year at the Center for Brains, Minds, and Machines at MIT. It was their symposium, their annual symposium. And then you have various professors there who are heading AI at Caltech, my alma mater, and as well as MIT and so on. And notice what he's saying. What is new non-trivial mathematical conjectures? You know what it is? New math. New non-trivial math. GPT-4 is doing that. Now that doesn't mean you can go into GPT-4, go on your ChatGPT account for $20 a month and say, please create new math. Okay, it's not that simple. Because one of the problems is that I like to tell people, it's like gold mining. GPT-4 is a gold mine, but if you go in with a toothpick, you're not going to get a lot of gold. So you have to know the prompt engineering and the other techniques to actually retrieve that kind of information. Okay, that's one of the key issues with it. Most people don't do that. They just use it like a search engine. And they're rather sloppy in how they enter their queries. But that's really what we're talking about. So new math and new physics. Okay, we're already talking about that with ChatGPT-4, with GPT-4. By the way, 4.5 is likely coming out next week. That's my spies tell me. Next week or the week after, we'll have 4.5. So that will be interesting to see. That's the way OpenAI releases products. When Google or Anthropic or someone else releases a product, then it's like the next day or week or two, they'll release something. If you remember when Google released their latest Gemini, then 3 hours later, they released Sora. Okay? So, and actually, the release of Google 1.5, Gemini 1.5 Pro was actually more important because it has the 1 million context window, token context window. But the media went after Sora, right? Even though Sora is going to be really expensive to use and requires a lot of compute. All right, so that's what we have now. Oh, let's go back. Let's do the second one. Let's do the second video.
So far, and the greatest leap forward of any of the big technological revolutions we've had so far. So I'm super excited. I can't imagine anything more exciting to work on. And on a personal note, like 4 times now in the history of OpenAI, the most recent time was just in the last couple of weeks. I've gotten to be in the room when we sort of like push the veil of ignorance back and the frontier of discovery forward. And getting to do that.
They pushed the veil of ignorance back. That timing for this Apex session was right after we suspect they achieved AGI. Okay? Continue.
That is like the professional honor of a lifetime. So
Yeah.
that's just, it's so fun to get to work on that.
And it's remarkable,
Okay,
though,
so
that
let's do the
for
next
each
one.
of you,
Next video.
AI will be about individual empowerment and agency at a scale that we've never seen before, and that will elevate humanity to a scale that we've never seen before either. We'll be able to do more, to create more, and to have more. As intelligence gets integrated everywhere, we will all have superpowers on demand.
Superpowers on demand.
We're excited to see what you
Go ahead.
all will do with this technology and to discover the new future that we're all going to architect together. We hope that you'll come back next year. What we launched today is going to look very quaint relative to what we're busy creating for you now. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for coming here today.
Okay, so this is their dev day in early November. He's saying that when you come back next year to dev day, you're going to look back and say, that stuff was nothing. Okay? Because they know what they have. You know, they understand there's a lot of issues with the release. Let's say you released AGI and you could, unemployment would go up, would be 40% overnight. Could be as high as 60%. How do you deal with that as a society? They know that, okay? And they're dealing with entities to figure out how to handle all these issues. There's also other problems of compute. Maybe that's a good thing there's a problem with compute, that there isn't enough hardware to really process what everyone would want to do with AGI. So maybe that's a good thing we don't have that, so society can help adjust a little bit better. So let's see, I think there's one more video. There's two more, but the next one in this series. The fourth one.
Will be able to
Yeah, so we're going to play this, but we're going to go to the next
a
part where Jeff Hinton speaks. Keep going. Keep going.
new non-trivial mathematical conjecture. I'm not saying proving it. I'm saying stating it. Who think it's possible within the next 5 years?
Are you sure that the current model cannot do it?
I'm not sure, absolutely. Do you know whether it can?
I mean,
Let me give you
Go
an
on.
example of something creative that GPT-4 can already do that most people can't do. So we're still trapped in the idea of thinking that logical reasoning is the essence of intelligence, when we know that
Not
being
really,
able to
but
see,
some people.
well,
yeah.
we know that being able to see analogies, especially kind of remote analogies, is a very important aspect of intelligence. So I asked GPT-4, what has a compost heap got in common with an atom bomb? And GPT-4 nailed it. Most people just say nothing.
What did it say?
It started off by saying they're very different energy scales, so on the face of it, they look to be very different. But then it got into chain reactions and how the rate at which they're generating energy increases, their energy increases the rate at which they generate energy. So
Well,
it got the idea of a chain reaction. And the thing is, it knows about 10,000 times as much as a person. So it's going to be able to see all sorts of analogies that we
This
can't
is the
see.
key point.
Yeah, so my feeling is on this, and you know, starting
stop
with things like AlphaGo and obviously today's systems like Bard and GPT.
You can stop the
You know,
video.
it's
Okay, thank you. So think about this. GPT 3.5 was trained on roughly 650,000 academic text, roughly 650,000. GPT-4 was trained on 25 million. Now, it's not like going to a library and the librarian says, there's the book, have fun. It's read all those books. It can correlate all that information. He just gave you an example, Jeff Hinton just gave you an example of that, where it can draw analogies that are just fundamentally impossible for humans to draw, okay? So, the potential impact, it's like, where do you begin, right? I could do a 3-hour presentation on this one slide. Besides the ethical and existential risk, I'm what's called an EAC, an effective accelerationist. We believe in the power of AI. We're not like the effective altruists who are the doomers. Okay, they think everything's going to collapse and AI is going to kill us all and so on. We don't disregard that there are potential risks, but we think the benefits of it in energy. Think about this, if we have fusion. AI is going to help solve fusion. And in quantum computing, AI is going to help quantum, but think about this, quantum is going to help AI. Okay? So a lot of the things that we deal with today will be solved with AI. But obviously there will be societal disruption, right? And things we can't predict. That's just the reality. We can't predict this. Could any of us really predict it, even think back 25 years ago, and with social media and smartphones and how society's changed now? I mean, realistically, how many of us really could have imagined what's going on today? I remember in the early days, I had an early internet account and I was CompuServe and the whole bit. You know, I was on ARPANET way back when it was basically just a military system. And thinking back then, people thought, and if you look back in the early 1990s, people thought that the internet would bring peace and joy, and it would be a great digital library that we could all use. Look what it's turned into, like a cesspool, right? So we can't really predict what's going to happen. I think that's one thing we need to acknowledge. But the transformative potential is just really unlimited. So what are some of the challenges in developing? There's obviously a great deal of technical complexity. Like I said, there's tens of thousands of papers being published. And these are ones, there's actually tens of thousands of peer-reviewed papers, not just the ones on arXiv that are not peer-reviewed, some of which are quite good, and some of which are really not good at all, but or just incremental advancements. But there's that much research going on. Now, the one key issue, as I mentioned, was data and compute limitations. It's the data set, the data set, the data set. I'm going to talk about how, at least it seems like OpenAI has addressed that problem. It won't just be OpenAI either. But compute's still a problem. We just don't have the hardware. Why did NVIDIA stock go up so much? Why is it the third most valuable company in the world? Because it provides the compute for AI. Was it because of the chips for VR or gaming? No, they've been doing that for a long time. It was all with the AI rush. And now, as you probably know, a lot of the companies like Microsoft and the rest of them are developing their own chips. Okay? We're hungry for compute. We really need to have the compute. So also take in consideration where we are already, that AI has exceeded human performance in many different areas, as you can see here. This is from a Stanford report that came out recently, and you can see in many different skills, AIs to date already are at levels surpassing humans. And remember, we're just at the beginning of this, okay? Just the beginning. So what are some of the current approaches to AI? And some of this talks about, oops, I guess you can't go back easily here. No, no, you can't. Yeah, please go back. Well, one more. Yeah, we'll go here. So Noam Brown. Noam Brown is probably the individual that's running QStar at OpenAI. I know Noam, but he can't say, right? It's one of those things, if he told me, you know, he'd be killed or something. So he can't talk about that. But if you follow him on Twitter, because he says things that probably get, you know, on the borderline of what he probably really should say. Notice, this post he put up was deleted. Okay, almost immediately. And that happens to him every so often. Okay, so superhuman performance by doing better, but you can't get it by doing better imitation learning on human data. What is he talking about? He's talking about synthetic data. That's been a big issue. Pretty much the corpus of human knowledge is already in these models. So where do you get more data? You create the data. It's synthetic data. But the problem with synthetic data, it's kind of like genetic mutations or marrying siblings and things. It kind of gets worse over time. It seems like they solved that problem. So that's what he seems to be referring to here. And it would make sense considering the work he's doing. By the way, how many people know what QStar is? Okay, good. So a couple of you do. So QStar is the project at OpenAI, which is really looking at bringing models for reasoning to a completely different level. Noam himself, he has a PhD from CMU. He's worked on poker and the game diplomacy. He's used it for negotiations and so on. And that's what they seem to be bringing to the next generation models. It doesn't sound like a big deal. It's a big deal. It's the inference. As a matter of fact, he even talks about this in some of his tweets, or I should say posts, right? We're not allowed to say tweets anymore since Elon doesn't like that. So post. But in some of his posts, he's mentioned some of these issues in the past. He talks about the various, where things are kind of going. He mentioned something that's kind of interesting, that if you could get a cure for cancer, but it took 1 week of compute, would you do it? Probably. Okay? But now we have other systems like Grok, which is super fast for the ADD crowd who can't wait a half a millisecond to get a response. I mean, does that really matter? Or does inference matter? Does IQ matter? Does the intelligence matter? You want to wait, and like he said, you'll wait a week for a cure for cancer, if that's what it takes. Okay, so that's what he's working on. I would highly recommend following him. Now, what are some of the trends that also play into this? This is from IBM, and I highlighted the ones that I tend to talk about, which are multimodal. So what is multimodal? For those who don't know, it's audio, images, video, and what else? Sensor data. Okay, so those are the 4 key categories that go into multimodal. And multimodal is the big deal this year. Okay, so we're going to see a lot of multimodal systems. So they're not just text-based. Matter of fact, when we say language model, is that even going to be appropriate in a few years? Because it's not just language. Okay, so what are we going to call it? We also have on the other side, we have agents, agent-based systems. I actually chaired at the first International Conference on Autonomous Agents, I chaired their Internet Agents session. Finally, it's becoming a reality. We're seeing a lot of technology in this area. OpenAI has made a major commitment to it and has stated they're going to have a lot of agent technology they will release very likely this year. But what do agents do? Agents are the kind of system, with an agent technology, you could say, I want to go on vacation. And it does everything for you. It knows where you like to go. It knows when you have vacation time. It knows which restaurants you like. It knows which airlines you fly. The agents will go out independently and do all those activities for you, put it all together. Basically, just create your trip. Agents can do that. If you've seen the Rabbit R1, unfortunately, the Rabbit R1 is not working so well with its agent technology, but that would be an example of what it should be like. And like I said, OpenAI is putting a lot of money into it. Also, smaller models. The smaller models, you may have seen the Phi 3 come out recently from Microsoft. You may have heard, I don't know if anybody's here from Mistral, I shouldn't say that, but if you're from Mistral, the champion of Europe, the EU, in AI, yeah, I don't know. They have a deal with Microsoft, but Microsoft's own technology is blowing them away. The Phi 3 on all the metrics is showing better than the Mistral, smaller models like 8X7B. And that's on a small model. So what's good about a small model? You can have it on your phone, natively on your phone. You could obviously have it on your laptop. So, and that way you're not connected necessarily to the internet, so you have more security, if that's an issue for you. Okay, if that's an issue for you. So, and they are pretty good. I mean, I use Phi, I play around with these just to see, and they are pretty good. But there is advantage, though, with the largest models. Does anybody know what that is? One of the key advantages with the large models versus the smaller models. Okay, what it is emergent behavior. Because what happens with the larger models, and we saw this in AlphaGo, when AlphaGo defeated the Weiqi Go champion of the world several years ago. It made moves, I think it was like move 37 or whatever, they call it that, whatever it is. But it made a move that no human Go player had ever conceived of. They looked at it, they didn't get it. Why did it do this? And it won. That's an example of emergent behavior in a reinforcement learning environment. When you have, though, a really large language model, you're at a whole different level. we will find out about economic systems we have never even imagined. Devices, physics, all sorts of things that are literally beyond our comprehension and knowledge, that the largest language models, through emergent behavior, will bring forth. I even talk about when you look at like GPT-6, by the way, it probably won't even be called GPT-5. They're going to change the name. But if we think of it just from a timeline point of view, if you look at GPT-6, how about if you were to have a conversation with Sagittarius A star, the black hole at the center of our galaxy? What could you learn, possibly, in a conversation with a black hole? Okay? So these are the kind of things we're looking at. Matter of fact, when you get to the GPT-6 level, that's really the kind of data you're looking at. Meteorological data, genomic data, all sorts of things of this type that are just basically impossible to integrate right now. But people are working on that. And then, of course, this year we're also going to see a lot of custom models. These are local models using things like Llama 3, which is pretty good. If you've used it and you look at the metrics, Meta released Llama 3 about a week and a half ago, and it's already performing quite well against a lot of the closed source models. I'm not one of those who believes that open source is going to equal to closed source. I think the closed source people are going to stay ahead. And since I'm more concerned about inference, I would rather pay the money to get a higher IQ result. Okay, that's me. But for basic things, maybe you just don't care. Okay, you'd rather just run a local model using an open source model like Llama 3. All right, so where's some of the research going right now? You can see in math, physics, business, which is mainly finance and marketing, and medicine, well, also a lot of operations, econ, and so on. You know, I would advise people, don't get a degree in math. Learn math, don't get a degree in math, okay? And physics. Learn physics, don't get a degree in physics, okay? It's a problem, because all this research that's going into it. And just some of the articles, I'm not going to go over this because of the time, but just what's going on. These are the 10, using altmetric, if you're familiar with that data. These are the most popular 10 articles now by researchers in the field. Okay, one of them was talked about yesterday by the Googlers. Language is not all you need. And that they showed that. That's one of the Google papers. So this is the consensus of when we're going to have AGI. Like I said, I believe OpenAI has already achieved it. And then societal impacts. Obviously, the employment issue is key. We really don't know how we're going to handle that. And I think that's a serious issue. The technological transformation that goes with it, societal transformation that will result of it. A lot of people talk about universal basic income. But what happens when so many of us are unemployed, but we have universal basic income to keep us alive, but we don't have a lot of disposable income? How's that going to transform things? Okay, we really don't know. And even the IMF, this is an IMF blog post, and it's part of a report. They called it scenario planning for an AGI future. Okay, the IMF realizes this is a serious issue that needs to be addressed. I want to show the last video, not the very last video, the next video, the fifth one. We have a song at the end. Oh, this one. This is from Michael.
Morning.
Watch me.
Just watch me now. Just watch me now. I got something for you, a little more for you. You won't believe your eyes. Just watch me now. I got something for you, a little more for you. You won't believe your eyes. Just watch me now. Just watch me now.
What is this? Augmented intelligence.
I'm in a timeout because apparently riding the dog, like it's a.
I didn't even hear that. Yeah, so you have augmented intelligence, and that's what you really need to give. This showed at the Super Bowl, which is the most widely watched TV event in the United States each year, and they showed it this year. That's really what it's all about. How do you get the tools so people can augment what they're doing so they don't get displaced? But the point is, if you don't master these tools, what are you going to do? And think about the other problems that go with it. First of all, like they're targeting lawyers. Well, okay, nobody's going to be sad about that. But, you know, targeting lawyers, management consultants. They're already showing medical doctors and so on, accountants and such. To higher paid people, AGI, now you don't even need AGI. Just what's being done with systems like Harvey and Law and some other ones can do so much of the work. Matter of fact, a lot of places have already said they are not going to hire as many new college graduates. You know, it's not politically wise to fire a lot of people, but if you don't hire new college graduates, not a problem. Okay? So what are they going to do? So this is really a big issue and how to deal with that. And you have to master the techniques. I notice even with people here, a lot of them have only used ChatGPT. Well, why haven't people used Claude Opus? I mean, if you don't want to use Llama 3 because it's open source, I can understand that. But, you know, using Perplexity instead of Google search. Okay, why not? Why aren't you doing that? Or using, like I said, Gemini 1.5 Pro for its context window. I throw books and articles, journal articles, into 1.5 Pro. Now, the inference isn't that good. The intelligence, the reasoning isn't as good as GPT-4. But I can get 750,000 words of material into the context window. Okay, so it does a lot of interesting things. And I've actually tested it. It will actually find something. We call it the needle in the haystack test. It will actually find, and can even reason a little bit about it and say, yeah, that thing on page 600, I'll give you an example. It was a document it was one of the US government agencies. They're funny, I think it was Defense, just recently. And they had something about Hamas. And it was like on page 780 or something. It found it, it analyzed it, and said what to do about it. And none of the others worked. GPT-4 wouldn't work, Opus wouldn't work, Claude Opus wouldn't work, because their context windows can't handle it. It's just that simple. All right, as we wrap up here. So one thing I do suggest to people, try to figure out how AGI is going to impact you in your field. Because one of the things I started to say is that as lawyers lose their jobs and accountants lose their jobs and so on and so forth, now they want to become yoga instructors. Okay, now that's fine. But the problem is, how many yoga instructors do you need? And then what's that going to do to the price and the wages of yoga instructors? Because people are going to fight to get the jobs they can get. So all the wages go down. All right, but we'll have cures for cancer. Nuclear fusion. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. So, what I'd like to do is, governance, regulate. Yeah, I don't cover too much of this. I think the best thing about this isn't the effective altruist, it's going to be regulation. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be regulation that's going to handle this. So all this other stuff and raising your arms and protesting and all that, forget all that. The regulation will handle it. And it will. Okay, so I'm actually going to send a report out to people on Q-Star, so you know a little bit more about it and what's going on. And also Project Stargate. I'm not sure how many people here might know about Project Stargate. It's the largest data center project in history. $100 billion for a data center. Who's doing it? OpenAI and Microsoft. Okay, it will be the largest. They are talking about using nuclear power to power the data center. Okay, that's what we're talking about now. This is the reality of what we're looking at. And that's not even thinking of AGI per se, and how widely used that would be, and how compute intensive AGI will be. It will be compute intensive. That's for sure. Okay, so actually I'm right on time. So I was going to have questions, but I guess no Q&A. But if you have anything, I'm going to be around. I'd be happy to talk with you about it. But this is exciting. I mean, this is an exciting time. This really is an exciting time. And take advantage of it. Don't be left behind or run over by it. Okay? But if you take advantage of it, you'll find a lot of opportunities. I believe that. Okay? All right. Thank you very much.